Muito obrigado.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. We now hear from the political groups. I begin by giving the floor to José Manuel Fernandes from the EPP for 2 minutes. Thank you very much, President, Honourable Commissioner, colleagues. Taxpayers' money in the EU must be well used. It cannot be squandered. It must be invested well. And prevention is better than cure. We need to have simple regulations so that we reduce red tape. The Member States have a key role to play in this context. For instance, if we look at Next Gen EU and the National Recovery and Resilience Plans and the MFF and the partnership agreements, in all those areas there need to be complementary actions and not overlap. Clarity needs to be the watchword. In addition to that, we need to know where projects are happening. We need to know who the end beneficiaries of a project are. That will allow us to measure territorial cohesion. That will allow us to know who is on the receiving end of European funds. I therefore don't accept the fact that the Council and the Member States have not accepted a simple premise. There could be a digital platform at European level where, if there is a project funded by the RRF, it would be possible, thanks to that platform, to know who the end receivers are, the end beneficiaries are. It's unacceptable that the Council has not accepted a simple premise. So that platform would allow us to know who's receiving that stimulus money. Luckily, the Parliament and the Commission have put forward a joint declaration to that end. Let me end by thanking Monica Hohlmeier for all her work. I thank the Commission for its determination, and I hope that this anti-fraud programme will enable greater cooperation so that we can clamp down on fraud and evasion. Transparency is needed if we are going to enjoy the trust of European citizens. Thank you.
Muito obrigado.
Thank you very much. I now give the floor to Ms. Penkova from the S&D for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Dear Commissioner, dear colleagues, first of all, I want to start by thanking the Rapporteur and our Shadow Fellows for working very hard on this programme. Preventing and combating fraud and corruption is essential, especially in the light of the introduction of a European budget of a new generation. The rule of law is pivotal for our Union, and especially for our political family. The new EU anti-fraud programme, unfortunately, is one of the smallest EU programmes, and despite the efforts of the Parliament to increase the budget to €321 million, during the MFF negotiation it had to come back to the initial Commission proposal of €181 million. However, despite that, we still have managed to enhance previously funded activities, such as financing equipment to combat fraud and further support the operational and investigating activities within the Member States. Together with my colleagues from this Parliament and from the previous one, we have succeeded to include in these regulations quite significant and important provisions that increase the transparency of the programmes and the fundings, clarify the protection of financial interest in the projects, and ensure synergies between the different fundings. We have also highlighted the Member States' role and responsibility in that matter. Thanks once more for the collaborative work and we hope that the program would continue to be as successful and as important as it is now. Thank you.
Muito obrigado.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is MEP Mituta from the Renew Group for 1 minute 30.
Mulțumesc, domnule președinte.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. The other day, here in the plenary, we were discussing the discharge of the Commission and the European agencies. We saw that at European level, we can talk in general about good management of public funds. I'm pleased about that. I think it's excellent. However, we shouldn't forget that almost 80% of the European budget is managed in the member states, not directly by the EU institutions. At national level, there's significant variation in the quality of the controls, and for that reason it's necessary, I believe, to strengthen the control capacity and the reporting of irregularities and fraud, and that's precisely what this programme can do. Thank you very much.
Muito obrigado.
Thank you very much. I now give the floor to Mr. Kuz from the ID Group for 1 minute 30.
Vielen Dank, Herr.
Thank you very much, President. Good morning, Mr. Hahn. Monica Hohlmeier, thank you very much for this report and for the work you've done. It's an important further step in combating fraud. The question is it enough? The big problem, as has already been said, is cooperation from the competent authorities, and by that I mean all the authorities. You said it yourself. If that doesn't work, if they don't cooperate, then we're missing an essential link in combating fraud. If we can't get that to work, then everything else is in vain. We could come up with any amount of rules and provisions, and they end up being counterproductive because they simply increase the bureaucracy rather than reducing it. So we need to work more on a paradigm shift in the minds of everybody involved in all the administrations. We can't have a situation that where in a lot of capitals it's enough just to hand out money and not accounting for it, whereas other capitals do. So we've got to get people to think differently, otherwise it's all in vain.
Muito obrigado. Próxima intervenção.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Daniel Freund from the Greens Group for 2 minutes.
Thank you, President. Sehr geehrter Herr Kommissar Hahn, dear
Commissioner Hahn, ladies and gentlemen.
Lonely excavator and the enormous ship stuck in the Suez Canal a few weeks ago. And I think this is really the perfect image for the EU anti-fraud program. To stay in the metaphor, the program is a good excavator. Giving money to national authorities and NGOs is, of course, great, and we should do that. But one little excavator is not going to get that huge ship unstuck. And an anti-fraud program of less than €1 million per year per member state is not going to stop fraud in the European Union, of course. The budget is supposed, this line is supposed to protect a budget that is 10,000 times larger. It's a nice symbolic start, but to overcome systematic fraud in the EU, we need bigger machinery, because some of the biggest fraudsters in the European Union lead national governments. I'm talking about Hungary, of course. Hungary has received about €500,000 from the previous program per year, and despite that, there is a 10 times higher fraud rate in the country than in any other member state, according to Olaf. So we need bigger machinery, we need some strong tugboats. So I think the Commission needs to cut funding under the current CPR provisions if management and control systems don't work. The Commission needs to start urgently using the rule of law conditionality mechanism. The Commission also needs to increase the budget and the resources of our anti-fraud institutions, EPO, OLAF, the Court of Auditors, because if we're spending twice the EU money over the next few years, we also need to spend twice the money on preventing fraud and corruption, I think. And finally, the Commission needs to ensure that we get a clear idea on the beneficial owners of those that receive EU funds, because fraud really should not be ever given. It should be stopped in the European Union. Thank you very much.
Muito obrigado.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Bogdan Zonka from the ECR group.
Dziękuję bardzo, panie przewodniczący, panie komisarzu.
Thank you very much, President, Commissioner. Both ECR and Poland, we support any and all actions aimed at fighting corruptions and any form of criminality in the EU. Of course, in the EU there is a lot of money, there is a lot of wealth, but there are criminals, crooks, and we need to give money to those EU institutions which defend the financial interest of the EU. I think we can follow in Poland's footsteps. Poland has been fighting mafias very actively for the last couple of years, which is why we have more money to support older people, families, all the people that need our support. So if we fight crime, we will have more money, and we need to put that money to the best possible use. Then the EU will be even richer. So we support all of your actions. Thank you.
Muito obrigado.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Sabrina Pignadoli from the non-attached for 1 minute.
Buongiorno a tutti.
Good morning, everyone. I fully support the recommendations of the text of the Chair of the Budgetary Control Committee, Monica Hohlmeier, and I'd like to thank her for all the work done, also for the protection of the financial interests of the Union. We know that in the fight against fraud, a lot is at stake in the coming MFF. Some steps have been taken forward with money for new IT tools, for training, and also for the management of irregularities system, which facilitates the obligation on the member states to flag up shortcomings. However, often behind the fraud, there are criminal organisations, sometimes the mafia as well, that operate across the board in all member states. So I urge you, fellow members, to fight this fraud and this type of organised crime. It has to be a priority of the Parliament and the Commission, because those who commit fraud are taking money away from all European citizens. A more effective anti-fraud programme will make Europe more credible vis-à-vis its citizens. Thank you.